Okay, gentlemen, welcome. I will now introduce you individually in no particular order. We have the CEO of Pionix, Dr. Marco Müller.
Yes.
That's you. Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
We have the CEO of StarCharge, Toni Cheng. Hello. We have the founder and CEO of Switch, Marc Mültin.
Hello.
Hello. And last but not least, the CEO and co-founder of Eevee Global, Donald Hopper.
Hi.
Greetings, gentlemen. Okay, so our focus is customer satisfaction. So why don't we just begin maybe with talking about how do we actually even analyze customer satisfaction? So what then are the key points that we need to measure to discuss levels of customer satisfaction? What's our measure? So anyone want to tackle this question?
I think for me it's something like should plug and play. I mean, maybe you remember the computers 20 years ago, it was really hard to get something connected to your PC. Then USB and things like that evolved. You can just plug it in and it should always work. And I think nowadays in the industry there's so many components to it and it's hard to get it always running in every constellation. I think this is often driving pain. So from on the highway, charging doesn't work, or you try to get your home solar installation, and this home solar brand doesn't work with a particular charger. And I think these are a lot of technology hassles we have to overcome as an industry.
Okay, so I'm hearing the interoperability,
Yes.
That's a pain point. So what else is important when we're talking about customer satisfaction? What are the categories then?
Yeah, I think that from our perspective, from Eevee's perspective, that will be, harder metrics like customer satisfaction. You have net promoter scores, you have customer effort scores. You can measure all these at every sort of moment of truth that you're having with your end users, whether that's an actual driver or maybe it's a fleet manager. And I think when you're looking at two of the main variables, that will be, of course, simplicity and convenience, right? And I think that's why we're summarizing it in the type of products and technology that we're putting out there. But really, it's how many of the available driver pool are we converting to eMobility?
Okay.
Yeah, maybe from my point of view, I think the customer satisfaction will base on different use case. So if I'm on the highway, I want to very quick because I want to the destination as soon as possible. But if I go to the football stadium, anyway, I need 3 hours. So for me, how quick is not important. But I want to easy to find the charging station, all the charging points in the stadium, and also maybe cheaper price. And if you go to the city, and then I want to have some reserve time slot service, will be very helpful for me. So from my point of view, will really depends on different use case.
So all very good points. And maybe you remember a few years back, it was all about range anxiety. And now we have basically overcome that. And now it's replaced with charger anxiety, where it's kind of like roulette whether your charger will work or not, that you're going to drive to with your Eevee. And to improve that situation, we need more granular details on the charger when we manage those chargers, like what's happening, is there a component about to fail soon or not? Detecting issues before they become a customer-facing issue is what's going to be more and more important, which means we need to have the right tool set, the right technology, in the end, the right communication protocols to enable a more advanced user experience and a bigger customer satisfaction. And that's, yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too much technical here, but when it comes to Open Charge Point Protocol, OCPP, that's the de facto standard for communication between chargers and backend. There are different versions, and the latest one is what we can use and should use to enable the more granular insight, but it's not yet really adopted too much in the market, and that needs to change. And that is the B2C customer satisfaction, but there's also B2b customer satisfaction when you think about partnerships between companies. For example, Switch provides an operating system for EV charger manufacturers. It's very important for us that we guide them along the way to get their chargers out there with the right software, and not just sell the software, here's the license agreement, pay me, have fun. No, it's important to work with them, to integrate them, to test everything until it's working properly. I think that's very, very important as well.
Okay, so I would like to maybe dig a little bit deeper, and I understand that it's that you have to look at each individual case. So what a good customer experience from a B2B point of view is going to be different from a B2C point of view. So why don't we just look at the end customer? So if you could fantasize in your ideal world, what would be the ideal EV charging customer experience? So maybe we can imagine, and then we can talk about how can we get there. So who would like to maybe map out for us your vision of the perfect B2C customer experience?
Okay, I can start.
Yeah.
I remember maybe more than 10 years ago, I think one advertisement from Samsung is called anytime, anywhere, any call. For me, I think the ideal will be anytime, anywhere, any charge. So it's just standard, not something special because the car needs a charge, so every day you can charge. So that will be the ideal in the future, I think.
Some other visions? Someone else?
For me, that means just plugging in and that's it. Plug and play, or as we call it in this industry, plug and charge. Which is, it also comes with more data security. So the more we get into the mass market of EV charging, the more it also becomes an interesting target for hackers. So we need to really think about cybersecurity. We need to think about convenience for the EV drivers, or just plugging it in, and that the chargers just work in the end, and that we don't have like a 25% failure rate, as it is often the place in many countries. So plug and play or plug and charge, it just works, and that we don't need to worry about any hackers out there messing with our grid, messing with our charging bills. So it's just a peace of mind.
So no fear of hackers, also quite important. Some thoughts from you?
I think I would extend on that. You mentioned plug and charge. This is more targeted to the, let's say, the payment side of things as well. But I mean, there's also private home charging, charging at work. So we have a lot of situations, and the system has to, basically, yes, you have to plug it in and it charges, but what does it mean? It's not always this technology. The charger has to find out when do you want to leave, what is your profile. You probably would also charge as cheapest as possible, so making it steered by solar, by current energy prices. So there's way more to it than just plugging it in and you get the bill automatically. So this even bigger ecosystem, it really goes, so there's a lot of different use cases, what you just said, like at the highway, at home, and we have to think about this holistically. And I think you're also working on this home world, right?
Yeah, yes. I mean, I suppose that from EVA's point of view, we measure it on three key sort of main pillars, and that will be the accessibility of the charging network, the reliability of the charging network, and the availability of that charging network. And those are sort of the three key sort of focus areas for EVA when we're helping our customers tackle the experience of charging and owning an EV. And what's interesting is that we started already 4 years ago, and it was answering phone calls really from drivers across Europe. And interestingly enough, our biggest measure is the call that never happened. And so I think an ideal world is one where we don't, luckily we do many more things than just answer a phone, but ideally what we're doing is avoiding them in the first place. And I think when we're looking at becoming a lot more preventive and predictive, it means that drivers don't need to think anymore about the actual, I suppose, action of charging, right? It's second nature. I mean, we are talking about habit at the end of the day.
So In your opinion, I mean, there's a lot of very exciting trends that we're seeing already now, vehicle to grid, and then we have changes in regulatory requirements and the digitalization of services. Where do you see the most potential for really changing and driving forward a more seamless and more positive customer experience? Like, what is the most important trend?
I mean, we touched upon interoperability. I mean, that is like the foundation of everything. If the chargers and the backend systems that manage those chargers don't work properly, then you have a pretty big frustration. And then EV drivers or those who rent a car to find out, is that something for me or not? And they get this experience of, oh, it's only working like 50%, 70% of the times. That's really detrimental to getting this mass market up and running. But aside from just a charging experience for the homeowners, it's super interesting to leverage the solar power you generate on your own roof, or even buildings that have big solar plants on their roof, and to be more energy self-sufficient and simply cut your costs by using renewable energy. So you touched upon V2G, but V2B, as in vehicle to building or vehicle to home, this is becoming more and more of a mega trend, and we need to enable that. For example, take the States. You know, they are often not a great, but an interesting showcase for why we need vehicle to grid to be less reliable on the grid itself. You have the rolling wildfires, the rolling blackouts. You have blizzards in winter. So people really have a desperate need to power their homes if there's another blackout. And this is an urgent need, not somewhere fancy feature in the future. We need that now.
Yeah, I think I also want to extend on this. Basically, the car can give you additional services to just drive you around, and charging so far is a necessity to be able to drive. But you can also, with vehicle to grid, vehicle to home, give additional services to your life. So, and improve your experience as a human in whole, and especially in the States with all the blackouts. And I also see a lot of people having big fear that similar things will happen in Germany and Europe. I'm not sure if that will happen, but at least the peace of mind, I think, will be a big driver also for people here, that if there's a blackout, they come home with their EV, plug it in, and it will power your house. And the lights will go on again for a couple of days. And I think that's something we have to enable as industry, but in order that people trusting this technology, it has to be always working. Every car, with every home, with every charger, with any solar installation. I think this, again, interoperability and reliability, basically, at the end, is what's required. So if we're building nice services, but they're only working % of the time, or only in certain combination, and also, I mean, this story's got promised to us, I think, since 10 years, that this will happen sometime in the future. And I think we as an industry are quite slow on delivering on that promise. And I think the biggest stopper on this is like, yes, there is OCPP 2.0, there's ISO 1511. Yeah, it was also there last year and the year before and the year before. So we're telling again all the same stories. And for me, this is kind of a complexity problem. If everyone tries to get the same stuff implemented and everyone tries to test against everyone else, you have a combinatoric explosion of things. You can solve it this way, but let's say other industries solve it different, and they're getting way faster in technological evolution and getting things done. I think this is where we as an industry really have to learn and look at the best practices others did. And we both are here evangelists for open source, because that's what solved the browser wars. Nowadays, you're not looking like which browser works with which website. That's solved, because all underneath, it's always the same browser, even it might look different on the front end. And I think this cleaning up the technology mess will help a lot of customers and bringing us way faster forward.
So cleaning up the technology mess, how do we do that?
I think except the charging period, some case like when you pay the money also will be difficult. So I want to say how to unify to let the end user easy to finish the the payment also is very important. Because in Europe we have so many regulations, so many ways, and credit card, and download the QR code. So I think this is also part of the experience. So it's not only for the charge itself, but also how to unify, how to synchronize the payment system also will be very important for the whole experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of it that will be taken care of course, by consolidation, I guess. But when you're looking at chargers and electric vehicles and car parks and payments, it's all in the ecosystem, really. And I think we need to stop treating it as an ecosystem, probably. And I think that may be something to do with the state at which we're evolving through that, market development phase. But I think we have everybody at least in this room with the right purpose.
I sometimes get the impression that when we talk about regulation in the context of the EV industry, it's almost like a dirty word. Like, we don't want regulation, but maybe regulation is good for protecting consumers. Maybe the limitations can force people to simplify. What is your view on the role of regulations?
I don't think regulations per se is a bad thing, but they sometimes just move too slow. Like, as you said, we have been promising V2G for years and years and years. And I mean, I've been researching on V2G in my PhD thesis 10 years ago. And now we just bring V2G to market. That takes way too long. In Germany, finally, now, under the new government, they are putting some momentum into making V2G properly happen. But before that, it was always like, you want to do V2G in Germany? Have fun.
But isn't the idea to protect the consumer at the end of the day? Isn't that also, maybe Germany is known for having very complex regulations with the aim of we want to keep our customers safe? So isn't that something that would appeal to customers? I'd rather not have this technology this year because it's too new. I don't know if it's really reliable. Let's force it to go through all of these other, loopholes, and then in 5 years, like, if it can get through German regulations, then I have confidence to use it.
So if I look on this famous Wallbox Förderung in Germany, so you got 900 euros for every AC home charger you installed, like last year-ish. And there was one of the requirements by this state regulation that it has to have software updatability. And to be honest, so the most boxes I saw, in theory, you might be able to get an update ever, but I think this is just one of these paper promises. So I think most of the companies will never deliver on that. And also it's hard to get delivered on that. And I think this is the difference between, yes, there was good intention in the law, but everyone hacked around it. And I guess many people will be quite frustrating if they have to switch out their chargers in a couple of years, because now they see how all the new stuff doesn't work, but it should be software updatable, but it doesn't work. And I think we are on the brink of losing a lot of trust on the early birds here. I hope it will not damage the industry, but here we see something like, yes, there was an intention of being future-proof, of not creating stranded assets, but I think this regulation failed.
In the UK, by the way, we have now a UK smart charging regulation that came into force, I think, in June this year, parts of it, and the remainder part in December this year, which demands that a charger is updatable over the air. It demands strong cybersecurity. I think only for the new chargers, not for existing ones. But that's the necessary first step. And I often hear, especially for AC charger manufacturers, they really are very price sensitive. So if a component costs 5 or 10 more euros, they say their customers, for them, it's already too expensive. I think that's the wrong mentality. We need to make sure our assets that we buy and install now are working for the next 7 to 10 years. And like with the Tesla car, actually the car gains in value because you update the software over time with new features. And you think about chargers the same way.
Some other thoughts from either of you?
I mean, I think regulation is an enabler, and it's all about creating access, right? And it can't be sort of looked in isolation of the actual people adopting it, because at the end of the day, they will choose which technology wins. We can't really hide behind, a regulation coming out or not. Or I think it's up to, the trailblazers in the industry to really push for putting the end user at the center of their value proposition. And I think in the end, they'll be rewarded with, market leadership, not because of regulation, but because of the value they bring to the market.
Okay, so for the end consumer, they're looking for plug and charge. I don't need to think about it. It works everywhere. It's easy to access. There's charging points whenever I need them, wherever I need them. Why don't we take a look then at your B2B customer? How is their ideal customer experience from your company's perspective?
If I may start with that, one good example is now bringing the plug and charge experience that is known from the high power charger networks, ICNC and Electrify America and so on, into the masses now with affordable cars like Volkswagen ID.5, 3.4, and Kia EV6 and so on, into residential parking spaces, for example, right? And there we are faced with customers that are property developers that have hundreds of thousands of apartments under management, and they want to electrify their parking spaces. So here, they have no clue about this business. They just want to add value to their properties, to their buildings, and they want a turnkey solution where they don't want to look for the installer and which hardware should I choose and which backend platform should I choose. They need a one platform or a turnkey solution provider that can help them, guide them along the way, even going to those meetings of the house owners to discuss what solutions to buy or to talk about all the worries they have. This is one kind of customer that you are faced with. You have to guide them with a turnkey solution on your one hand side. And the other thing I mentioned in our case is we also cater towards the charger manufacturers, where you provide them with the software which needs to be integrated into a rather complex architecture sometimes. And we need to also hold the hand to do testing until it works, until we say, yes, we tested every use case, and here, now you can sell it to the market. Not just sell software and say, have fun, but really help them through the process.
Yeah, for StarCharge, actually, we have two roles. One is the equipment provider. But from our side, we are the biggest CPO in China. So that means CPO is also our B2B customer. So we very care about the maintenance cost. Because in China, we manage over 1 million points and in 350 cities. So this is very huge assets everywhere. So if the maintenance cost is too high, I think it will be very, very difficult and pain point for all the CPOs. So I think the smart maintenance and easy maintenance, low-cost maintenance will be the key for B2B customers.
Yeah. Maybe Eevee in itself is a testament to what we're discussing here, which is I think we're used to seeing companies for whom the sale of electricity or actually offering a charging opportunity was their core business. More and more, you're getting the broader market looking at how they can augment their core service. And so if you tell them that part of driving up footfall, whether that's for fuel retailers or at a shop, and you show that actually being able to offer that charging opportunity will increase that, then the next challenge that they're faced with is actually rolling out and running infrastructure that has very little to do with their core business. So they look at partners like Eevee and others who are offering that first line, second line, remote operation, monitoring of infrastructure, anything from having to deal with work orders for field service providers and then actually orchestrating the field service. And maybe that's what we'll see more and more as the broader market starts looking at electric vehicle charging as a way to augment their core service.
Yeah, I'm also like, if you talk about B2B customers, we also have to distinguish in my mind, so what kind of customers are we talking about? So we are basically providing the software for chargers for any kind of industry. So the first line, typically the charge point makers, and everyone has different wishes how his charger should look like. So we have to compromise, or not compromise, we have to find a perfect solution of how we enable everyone to be different, everyone to be special, without losing the ability of being rock solid on the standards that everything works with each other. So this is kind of our promise that we're taking care of all the commodity boring stuff, so our clients can invest their money where they can shine, not only on Me Too development. And if I look on the next line of customers, basically the customers of our customers, also companies operating charge points. If you're operating a big fleet, you typically also have custom branded software. So you maybe have multiple suppliers, so you have to give spec sheets to multiple suppliers. Everyone has to implement the same, so it's a mess. You have to test every software upgrade from every charger supplier with a big fleet of cars. So you have entire operation just to keep your software update supply stream, let's say, in line and not breaking things. And I think we can streamline a lot in the industry by just, let's say, agreeing on we don't need hundreds and hundreds of implementation of the same standard. We should just stick to something common and then scale it over the industry. And I think this could be done by open source. That's how we're proposing it. I think the old Microsoft Windows, we're selling library licenses and everyone has to buy it. It's kind of outdated. That will not happen again. And it also enables this, let's say, multiple customers to, depending on the distance to us as a software maker, to be able to add their things, to be able to trust and rely on a big community broad testing, so we saving money along the process for everyone there. And in the end, you're coming up with higher speed, better tested products, and still able to customize it as much as you want.
Yeah, there's a question of best of breed there, I think. Right? And then when you're rolling out infrastructure, you've installed it, you still need to choose the charger management system, among other things, including, of course, things like your first and your second line, whatever it might be. Maybe that's,
Yeah. I think this choosing the charge management system. So we think that there are a tremendous amount of different charge management systems, or basically backend systems out there, energy management systems out there. And I think it's hard for us to decide what is the right backend provider you have to pick. So we say like, okay, we supporting any standard, we're working with anything. We try to get this compatibility into the core so our customers can choose what's best for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to ask, as maybe not the typical end customer, like I am not an early adopter of technology, like I'm somebody who's more cautious in using new technologies. I want to make sure that other people have used it already. Where do you see the most promising area or trend in the EV industry to expand to the mom who has her kids in the back and she wants a car that's easy and straightforward and secure and isn't going to be spying on her with too advanced software, and just somebody who is, more cautious? Where do you see people like myself being brought in as a customer and to have my customer experience to be seamless?
So if I just think about my family, so the first experiences with EV driving, also with kids on board and long distances, was for my family always like a bit, okay, panicking. How will it work? Where do I find my spot? When should I do this? And how do I do it if only one adult is driving, finding out the next charging location because our old Hyundai Kona wasn't really good planning, had the routes. And so I see a lot of usability issues there, and which lead to fear, and which lead to, okay, maybe I only use the electric car in the close distance, so I don't have to charge abroad. And I think this getting tackled, but we're a bit slow, and I think it's really slowing down the mass adoption everyone is waiting for.
Exactly. So it's not just selfish reasons that I ask a question like this, because at the end of the day, that's the customer profile that's going to be driving mass adoption, right?
Yeah.
It's not like the techie geeks, who are just excited to drive the coolest gadget.
I'm an early bird.
A computer on wheels, which is what the first sort of electric vehicles were trying to appeal to. So mass adoption means it's grandmas driving these cars.
To be honest, I'm really afraid of recommending my parents an electric car because I'm not sure if the industry is ready for my parents yet.
We're going to quote you on that. That's the quote from the conference. I'm not sure my parents are ready for an electric vehicle.
In the end, when you have, it's machine-to-machine communication. The car talks to the charger to the backend to other backends. They rely on communication standards. They rely on a protocol, as we have a protocol how we greet each other. The same way machines have protocols how they communicate and exchange information. And the industry stakeholders that provide their, like the chargers and the backend systems, they need to abide by these protocols. And we see too many interpretations or flavors that exist out of laziness or just not, for some reason, implementing standards properly. That's where we see a lot, that's where all these, or many of the issues arise from. For example, you don't know if when you look at your, plug share or a Zap map or whatever, you arrive at a charging station. First of all, if it's actually going to be there where it says it's supposed to be, and second of all, if it's really available. And I have the same problem like you. When my mother asked me, so I want to go to France on vacation with our electric car, and are there going to be enough charging stations? I'm like, yeah, soon, and I hope so. And I hope they will be working. But yeah, I exactly feel your pain, and we are not there yet. So we need more chargers, but we need reliable chargers and reliable backends, and the industry properly implementing standards. And this is not yet the case. And that's where open source software comes in also, because there's no point in trying to reinvent the wheel. In the same way as we have Android for mobile phones. Also, a very nice example that I heard is when you want to give a presentation to someone to do a pitch for your business, you don't go and re-implement PowerPoint. You use PowerPoint to get your point across. So why should we do it different with the basic operating system underneath?
But to be honest, I think we need to implement the standards better. I think this is misleading because I think standards are made by humans. They're made for other humans to read. So the flaw is typically either the human who wrote it or the human who read it. And humans are always flawed. So I think the way how other industries solved it, they just coded one version and said, okay, whatever is in this code, that's where we all agree on. It might be slightly different from the PDF document where some humans wrote something, but we have to agree on one or maybe two implementations. That's how it's done in all other industries. If we have hundreds of implementations, it will be hundreds and hundreds of humans who had different interpretations. Sure, you could fix it by testivals, where every car and every cloud and every charger tests with each other, but this is just a patch on a bigger problem. And sure, we can continue trying it this way, but also something really interesting happened this year, actually. So last year, when we started with this open source vision, everyone told us automotive industry will never go to open source. They're so conservative. They won't do it. But if you look, there's some new foundation from Kpis Foundation. There's a software-defined vehicle working group, and their vision is code first. So instead of defining over years and years a new standard and then trying to implement it and see that's maybe suboptimal, let's code it down first together as a group, and later on we maybe can write it down for humans. But then we already have this piece of code, everyone can use it free of charge, and that's where we all agree on. And this worked so much better in other industries, and also the cars are now switching to this model with Bosch and Volkswagen and everyone behind it.
I think we're handling now probably about 20,000 interactions a month, and we have a lot of first days. That's all I can say about that. So whether you're turning up and a session is not starting, or you couldn't, you weren't authenticated properly, or you couldn't pay, or there's a lot of first days, and first days keep on repeating themselves. But like you said, adopters will become less and less patient with this new technology because their livelihoods will depend on it, right? They're doing it for a living. But yeah, still a lot of first days.
Should we take a look at some of the questions that have been sent in from our audience, just to make sure that we have enough time to get to those? So let's see if we can pull up. I know that a few have already been sent. Here we go. So Anirban asks, what are the different KPIs you use to measure customer satisfaction? Yes, I think that's what I was trying to get at the very start of this talk. I know it's a complex question, but exactly, how do we measure customer satisfaction?
I suppose you could start with the usual, how happy were you with the service, customer satisfaction. You could go on to things like customer effort score, so how easy was it to charge today with us. You can do the one where you're doing a promotion, so net promoter score, and you say how likely are you to recommend a service to somebody who's not driving an EV. And these are sort of ways of doing that. I think as an industry we need to measure it on how much of their current freedom are we taking away from them by introducing this new technology. And that's a little bit more difficult to measure, but ultimately should be the holy grail, I think.
Yeah, maybe I share one experience which we learned from China. Okay, so in China the EV developed very fast. Last year we sold almost 3 million cars. In this year, in first half year, already 2.5 million. So maybe the end of year will be easily over 4 million to 5 million. Wow. But we recognize they have some issues from the consumer. Because most of young people, they want to in big city. I think in Europe it's the same, right? Because big city, easy find job and everything. And then you are not able to get a house. So most people living in apartments. That means you are not able to get the parking slot everyone. So how to share the wallbox to your neighbors? So we did the survey from the market. This is the most pain issue for most of young people because still the young people is most people buy the EV cars. In China, I think it's maybe similar in Europe. So then we share the platform to all the wallbox user, and they are able to share their wallbox to the market. They can define the price, define what the time slot I not use. Then I think this is very welcome. Now we already have over, I think, several hundred thousand users year by year, and we have more and more. That means we are able to solve the pain points, and also we built an ecosystem. So not only the B2B customer can be the part of the ecosystem. Actually, every home user, you are also able to through your small wallbox. But you also can be a very small CPO because you offer the charger, offer the parking place, and also you give the convenience and to your neighbors. And then all the neighbors are very happy because before then they were very worried about how it can charge every day. Now I think we have solved the problem. So this is also customer satisfaction. And from CPO, we through this business model, and also we get money, and also improve our branding, and also let the end user satisfy and make the ecosystem bigger and bigger.
Great. Do you want to say something, or should we move on to the next question?
I can add something. I mean, from our point of view, we are more in a B2B business, less in a B2C. So, for example, when we provide a platform for charge point operators, one aspect is how much can you reduce friction for, let's say, onboarding chargers. It should be like a 2-3-step process, and then you have your charger up and running. Second is how much can you reduce the maintenance costs by giving very granular insight into your charging infrastructure and giving you alerts before they become customer-facing issues. So this reduces a lot of costs on their side, makes those customers happier, and maybe also adding revenue streams by enabling vehicle-to-grid, enabling virtual power plants so they can add revenue to their business model.
Actually, sorry, but that's really interesting because so we are B2B, but we are ultimately doing this for the end user, and we all agree on this. And so another way of measuring this would be customer loyalty, right? But I think what we need to do is change it around and start talking about being able to measure how loyal we're being to our customers. And I think that's a very huge shift in mindset. So how are you measuring the way that you're being perceived in terms of how you show your loyalty to the customer? I think that's what we need to be helping, whether it's B2B or B2C. I think it doesn't really matter.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's have a look at our next question. So Sarah asks, customers seem to want to avoid calling the support line at charging stations when things go wrong. They would rather find another charger due to lack of trust. So what are some ideas on how we can realistically improve the experience in this area?
I think one problem you typically have if one charger, let's say public DC charger, breaks in a certain location, typically the neighbor chargers are clones of it and will most likely have similar problems. So you would like to have to be a bit lucky that there's a second provider with different brands next to it, then you can try it this way. But I think actually we have to solve the problem in the first place, that there are no broken chargers out there. And I mean, this experience that you call there and they're rebooting is a bit ridiculous. Have you tried switch it off and on again?
Yeah, we spoke about accessibility, reliability, and availability, right? Reliability is, the charger works. You're getting rid of charger anxiety, hopefully. And then you go into accessibility, so I can turn up and I can pay for it, I can charge. And then you have availability, which is if I have a problem, there's somebody on the other side to help me. And this is an interesting question because it's funny, it might be counterintuitive, but actually Eevee wants to avoid the call in the first place. And I don't think it's about the call. I mean, how many channels do we have out there? So it's more than likely that if they're having an issue somewhere, there's a trail of this feedback. Question is, what are you doing to recompile this, collect it, and then create meaningful data from it?
Okay, let's have a look at another question sent in by our participants. Sandeep asks, what are the best practices we can use to improve the charging experience, and what aspect of POI can still be improved?
I mean, when you come to POI data, the accuracy of the POI data, I hear that there's lots of false dynamic information, like a charger is supposed to be available, although it's broken down. So measuring what's really going on the charger,
Yes.
by means of a proper communication protocol and by implementing it on both sides correctly is a first good step in my point of view.
Yes, I would extend on that you need this insight, but also it's not only the protocol, but the entire hardware and software underneath has to be ready to actually find out what's going on. I mean, at the moment, it's like it's running or it's not running in most of the cases, and that's a bit not sufficient to operate a proper business.
Any other thoughts or input?
Just a quick one is, it's not just a charging experience. I'm going to go a bit crazy here and call it life experience, because it's not just what happens at the charger with the charger. I mean, it's part of the equation, but it is an ecosystem. There are, for the first time, a lot of things that can happen around the experience of charging a vehicle. I think we need to be able to integrate everything that happens on a site, thanks to that opportunity to charge. We're doing things like the EVA score, for example, and you can really look. So we're now connecting to about 300,000 different chargers spread out across different continents. We can look at what is working at a charger level, what are the usual sort of reasons for a call and usual reasons for a breakdown, then sort of start guiding the market in terms of what should be installed depending on what the use case is. And maybe it starts there, but it's always with the end user at the end of any value proposition you're putting out there.
Thank you very much.
And if I may add just a little experience from a weekend trip I had, going to a charging spot, like I live in the UK, and then there are like these highway parking spaces. I need to charge for like half an hour to recharge my Tesla. If I could get proper food and not just this fast food all the time, that would be amazing.
I was about to say, give customers like a free coffee every time they charge their cars, like a healthy shake. And we have some here today at the year of Kpis. I hope you all had some smoothies. Yeah. Okay, let's look at the next question from our participants. Yep, is asking, what is, in one word, the mRNA shot that industry players need to help their DNA respond to future needs? Yes, I love this medical terminology. So,
education on the potential of new technology. Mm-hmm. So just education is the one word.
Education, always useful, for sure.
Collaboration, so not everyone on its own, but collaborating on the standards.
Yeah, it's customer obsession, I think.
That's 2 words.
Let's put hyphen between it, maybe. Yes.
I think those are very good, though. Thank you. Okay, let's look quickly if we can get to a couple of more questions. It seems there's quite a few that are coming in. So Zara is asking, what payment methods do you recommend purely from a customer experience perspective, and what are the main challenges?
I would actually say whatever the customer wants in that region. So I guess for my parents, it would be good to pay with cash. I guess in China, it might be good to pay with WeChat, I guess. Whatever you use. So I think we should not decide this. It should be everything possible, whatever is common in that region.
Yeah, I would say as a Chinese, so at the beginning, most people use cash for sure. And then I remember the credit card in China is a real very short time. We just skip the use credit card period, go to the mobile payment. So now over, I think, at least maybe 1 billion people. And in China, you don't need a cash, credit card. You just make sure you have enough power for your smartphone. That's enough. You go everywhere. And the age you cover from 5 years old to maybe my parents, 75, also can use mobile phone for any payment and to everywhere. So I hope if we can skip this credit card and for charge, it would be very helpful.
But one thing about this mobile phone payment. So I saw this often in Germany failing because there was no network connectivity where this damn charger was placed. So I couldn't pay. So we have to make sure whatever we offer also works.
And with the payment here, there is especially, I'm not sure if it's just Germany or all over Europe, discussion to have credit card terminals with PIN pads installed, especially on DC chargers, I think, which I find a bit insane. It's enough to have NFC payment. And why do we need a PIN pad? It's not the 90s. Yeah, we live in 2022. I understood someone told me once, well, if the payment or if the sum goes above a certain value, like 50 euros, you have to have this PIN pad because you need to enter your PIN. But I'm sure we find some other solution. We don't need these credit card PIN pads. This is just costs for the infrastructure provider or the manufacturer that are really unnecessary, in my opinion. Other than that, if it's NFC payment or plug and charge, I don't care. Whatever works for the customer.
Yeah, I think if we listen, it's mobile payments and then credit and debit card, right? And ideally a credit or debit card on wheels. Maybe that's what will become of the car.
It is shocking that in America people still pay with a check, like a paper. That's true.
Yeah.
They still can pay with a paper check.
And coins.
Seems like ancient. Anyway, okay. Next question. We can pull it up. I think we have another like 5 or 6 minutes. Aha. What can the European EV industry learn from China and vice versa? So Claudio asks, what can we learn from one another? So that's always a wonderful and interesting question.
Yeah, so just personal opinion. So first of all, because the charger business is quite a new business. So once you have a new business in the industry, the government need to do something. So the incentive program from the government and the strong message from government is very important for the industry. So I think in China at the beginning, give the incentive program for the Eevee users. If you buy the Eevee, you have some discount. Now I think Germany also do the same. Then later on gives an incentive program to CPO, because most of the CPO know the pain points, and for example, how to improve the user experience. Actually, they know it, but if no money, you can do nothing, right? Because you have to get the hardware, get the location, do the branding, and do the R&D and back-end app. So everywhere you need money. So that's why if you are not profitable CPO, and even they know the user experience is not good enough, but if no money and they are not able to improve, and then end of the day, maybe nobody will in this industry because everybody feel it's difficult to make money, they will leave. So that's why I think at the beginning, the government incentive program and to encourage the industry go forward is very, very important. And then I think if you are able to make money, then like the OEM business, so a lot of tier 1, tier 2, they want to join this industry and be the part of the ecosystem. And then everybody can make money, then for sure they will improve their experience, because the user experience is very important to keep you can be profitable. Then everything will be improved. Otherwise, it would be very difficult. Maybe after 5 years, 10 years, nobody wants to spend money for this industry. Then everybody will out of the game.
Maybe not directly to China, but I think something we're doing good as a European, after I complained a lot, I think we are good in not building the silos. If I look to the US, it's more like, let's say, a Tesla ecosystem or another vendor ecosystem. I think we're really good on slicing this into layers and spreading over multiple players. It comes with friction, but I think it's nice that we're able to do that. And also has benefit on the long run, I guess. I hope so.
Any other thoughts on what China can learn from Europe, what Europe can learn from China? Okay, let's
also,
go on.
If we think right, we just do it. We can talk, but not too much talking, and then we'll be too slow.
Oh, yes.
All right, let's have a look maybe at a couple of more questions. We have about 5 minutes. So Arnoldas asks, how are you feedbacking newly onboarded CPOs on the best practices with the customers?
Let's have a call. I'll let you know. Huh?
Anyone care to share some more details?
This is a huge question. I think you also, I think the industry is currently redefining what the role really of CPO is as well. So, of course, we have all kinds of feedback on the experiential part of drivers adopting that technology and using your network. We have feedback on how your network is performing in terms of the scores that we apply to it, depending on how reliable that infrastructure is. We have scores on how your chargers are operating with different vehicles as well, particularly as you start updating anything from the hardware that you're rolling out to the firmware that you're using to connect. So I think there's a lot we can provide feedback on.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. Yeah? So Clara asks, why aren't your parents ready for an Eevee? And how do we overcome that?
Okay, maybe that's my question. So my parents are not ready for EVs. Let's say, I'm not sure, who of you here in the audience knows this issue that your parents always call you for IT problems? So yeah, kind of half of the audience. So I have this kind of parents. They're nice. They're starting to learn, use IT stuff. But at the moment, if it not works on the first time, they will maybe never forgive the technology. So it has to be as ready that if they're the first time charging somewhere, they're plugging it in, swiping their card, and it just works. And I think the chances are not so high this just works the first time. The second issue is actually they're carrying a lot of load across Germany, and I think the EVs are not really good with trailers, and basically charging with the trailer is also a big issue for them. So that won't work now.
And what do you think is central to overcoming that then?
Basically this frictionless, always works, seamless, highly tested, never fails, and no combination. I think the usability in principle is okay nowadays if it works.
Yeah.
It's the Tesla approach in that sense. Sorry to use Tesla, and we don't want to quote Tesla all the time, but they obsess about the quality of the charging experience. They analyze every little detail about the charging, and if something goes wrong, they fix it with a software update. And that is for sure not yet happening. There is charging infrastructure that is abandoned, where you see like a DIN A4 page, sorry, it's out of order since half a year. I mean, come on, charge point operators, this cannot be.
But do you know why Tesla can do that so much better? Because they have the car and the charger under control. We are relying on a standard which was written years ago, which had some pretty bad ideas maybe on some places, and we can't fix it because we're locked in. And I think if we can evolve faster, that will help a lot.
So I think if everyone here work hard and then buy an EV car as a birthday gift for our parents, they will do it. They will use it. Right? And tell him this is a very expensive gift, and I think your parents will be very seriously enjoy the EV life.
And I have to say, I have to think back of something that was mentioned. Oh God, I've been to so many conferences, the ICNC conferences, but I think it was actually just last year that somebody said, your parents are going to feel confident adopting an EV when it's just as easy to charge it as it is to go to a gas station. That's the measure. I mean, that's really what people want, that it's that easy. You don't think about it. You're not worried. You don't have to fumble with anything, and that's the level that we are trying to attain. So my timer is blinking at me, so that means that we have to wrap up this panel. Gentlemen, thank you so very much. It's been so interesting to hear all of your thoughts, and thank you to our audience for your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.